Directo al arco. ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
And good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for Wednesday, May 9th, 2018. On the line, as always, Duane Rollins. He's on location today, going to Toronto FC 2, starting at 11 a.m. First of all, Duane, how early is 11 a.m. for a soccer game?
It's pretty early. It's one of those school day games. There's lots. I'm right outside the stadium right now, and they're actually playing it at Monarch Park, which is on Toronto's east end. We've said that as a potential location for a nice little stadium you could tuck into for the Canadian Premier League down the road. I would need some renovation, but yeah, a lot of school buses here. You might be able to hear some music in the background, some birds chirping. It's a beautiful day at least, and pretty early for a soccer game. Though I'll be interested to talk to the players after, but what it's like to play at 11 a.m. in the morning. It's crazy. Yeah,
it must be crazy. Still digesting the breakfast, but let's just put it this way: this probably will be TFC's most attended game ever, just because school kids. That's a good idea, though. It's a good way to include soccer community, new fans, and generate new fans by organizing those type of trips. When I was a kid, I remember going to the Expos game a few times during the week, and if that can become a new tradition in Toronto, why not? It's Tuesday. It's Wednesday today. A lot of news since yesterday, Duane. So let's just dive into it before we preview tonight's game. 5 games tonight in Major League Soccer, a lot. But since yesterday, let's start with the Chicago news that dropped earlier this morning. The USL Chicago, yeah, that's a thing. It was a team that was planning to start in 2020, while the Ricketts family, owner of the Chicago Cubs and Wrigley, and this family, the Ricketts family, a pretty wealthy family, announced that they bought up the plan to have USL Chicago in 2020 with a 20,000-seat stadium at Lincoln Yards, which is close to downtown, which is close to Millennium Park and that area, and it would be right next to the lake. It would be a beautiful project, but 20,000-seat stadium for a USL team, I don't know, Duane, but when I look at Bridgeview and I look at the Fire Stadium that I'll see up close tonight on TV, I kind of get a feeling maybe the Chicago Fire will move to Lincoln Yards in 3 years.
That's certainly a possibility there as well. The other thing that jumps to mind is that MLS is really liking and enjoying their inner city rivalries too, and not that the Fire are exactly ripping it up attendance-wise, but the Red Bulls weren't either. So you look at the traditional sort of rivalry within Chicago, North Side, South Side, and this plays into that as well. And that's something there. But we don't know any of this. This is all rap speculation based on the USL announcement. But 20,000 seats in a nice area of town, Bridgeview. It's a nice stadium. It really is. And if you've ever been there, anyone will agree with that. It's a beautiful footprint of a stadium, but it's in the middle of nowhere.
It was beautiful. I don't know about now. I don't know if I ever said this on air, but Jonathan Tannewald and I last year, when it was the All-Star game, the homegrown game, right, at the Toyota Park. Oh, we were doing a live show, live little hit on the close to the field. There was about 2 big rats that just were in the stadium. Literally, they were not worried about us. We were worried about them. It felt like we were at their home. So we'll see. Maybe it's still time for a new stadium in Chicago.
Maybe. Well, yeah, I like the stadium, but it's been a few years now since I was there, I guess, when I think about it. So yeah, perhaps it is time for a change there. But no, look, Chicago's a funny market. It's big enough to support 2 teams if you're going to go that route with it. Certainly the other route of just the Cubs eventually, or the Ricketts family, which own the Cubs, buying this and including it into their sort of, Chicagoland sports and entertainment, to use a term that we hear up here type thing. There's some sense to that too. Not like, as I said, the Fire are doing that well. And I don't think anyone would complain other than, if you look at the Red Bulls, you look at the Galaxy, if they were to move their stadium back in the day, if they were to, just go to a better stadium downtown, I think you might get some pushback because the fans are sort of have geographically clustered around that team now, whereas I don't think anyone in Chicago would complain about the Fire moving out of Bridgeview. Yeah, it's not exactly the prime location within the city. If you've never been there, you cannot understand how far it is away from anything.
It took me an hour and a half of public transit to get from my downtown hotel that was about 10-minute walk from Soldier Field, not even. It was literally downtown. It took me good like an hour and a half to go to Toyota Park. But it's not just about that. Why the speculation started this morning is because we all have seen the attendance in Chicago since last year. They had a very good 2017, especially when you compare it to recent history for Chicago. And the crowd hasn't really answered. You had the Schweinsteiger, and I know talking about crowds and attendances again, I hate to do this, but it's just the perception of the popularity of Chicago Fire right now. Even though you have superstars like Schweinsteiger, superstar by name, I know, we'll see on the pitch this year. Last year was all right. But you kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of disappointed by the response. And I'm thinking, yes, of course, it's the second biggest city, not market, but it's the second biggest city in the United States of America. Is it big enough for two soccer clubs? Technically, yes, of course. But is it like in New York? Is it like LA? Could you have the White Sox and the Cubs in Major League Soccer? That's what I'm wondering. Could you have the Fire? I don't know. One team could be called the Fire, and the other team could be called, I don't know, the Lakers or something, because you're next to the lake. But what? Could it be that too? Could you have two teams of Major League Soccer if it ever goes to 30? Because the way it's going, 28 is going to happen really quickly. 30, 32, who knows? Could one of those be Chicago?
They're going to 48. I've been saying this for years. They are not going to stop until they have enough to divide into two divisions, and that's how you're going to finally get pro rel in the United States. It's going to be a semi-closed system. At any rate, absolutely. I mean, Chicago, it's the third biggest, by the way. LA and New York are bigger, but it's still a very big city. It's almost the exact same size as the city I'm standing in Toronto, and we're going to have multiple teams there with the Canadian Premier League in the near future. I don't think anyone's worried about that. The other side of this, too, is that I wonder, the USL has improved its level of play to the point that it's probably a similar level than what you would have seen in MLS 10 years ago now. You put a solid competitive team in USL that's in a kind of downtown location, and a lot of Chicago Fire fans that are kind of 4 or 5 games a year might just go, you know what, let's just buy USL season tickets.
Yeah, it's closer. I don't have to spend 3 hours just to get there. I can watch my team. And look, they're winning. They're winning in the USL. Why not? Yeah, I get the feeling.
Well, exactly. Yeah, and exactly. They could be winning. They could be. It's downtown. You're still having beers with your buddies and standing a nice in the summer day out watching soccer, closer to bars and stuff like that. That's the other thing about Virtue as well. There's nothing around it. Like you have to tailgate basically. There's a nice little Polish restaurant that's over the overpass that we went to when we were there. But that was like a 20-minute walk away, right? So this is I can see exactly how this is appealing. And, if it's two teams in the market, that would be great for Fire. But if it's just, okay, we'll move them here and kind of rebrand them, it would also give them an opportunity because, as we've said many times before, was a joke that Wes made on Monday is you only have 2 chances to make a first impression in MLS type thing or whatever. Yeah, it would be kind of like that. It would almost be like a relaunch if they were to move to a new stadium that was closer to downtown, and maybe you rebrand because it wouldn't be the first time within MLS history that you'd see a rebrand. I mean, they'd be name some, derivative. What was that, like futsal or it's Polish? So you'd have to have a Polish name. What's the most famous Polish club? That would be what Chicago would call itself, I guess.
I have no idea, but yeah, sure, that could work. Let's continue in the Chicago vein. Torres, apparently, remember a month and a half, 2 months ago, Chicago was like, yeah, no, we don't have Fernando Torres on our discovery rights. Well, I guess they do, because they're negotiating either with Fernando Torres and his agent right now in Madrid, and with other teams too. Apparently, the Montreal Impact are still included. Apparently, maybe Orange Dynamo, and another MLS team maybe, and Chicago, of course. Apparently, Fernando Torres wants to go to a warm weather, so I don't know why he's considering Montreal. I don't think he knows that in November it won't be fun to play here. But Torres, is he coming to MLS? We've talked about this for a few weeks now. Does he have the type of profile as a striker, as a soccer player, to come here, work hard, and achieve success?
I think he's skilled enough, but this idea that I want to come to a warm climate would be alarm bells for me. Why are you worried about the climate? You're a professional athlete. Shouldn't you be? You played in Liverpool, for God's sakes. What, if you're worried about the climate, you're looking for someplace to retire to, not someplace to go play football in. That's to me, that's an off-the-field consideration. If players are talking about that as their primary motivation when they're looking to sign in MLS in this particular iteration of MLS, I just say, you know what, forget about it. Go enjoy yourself. Go talk to the new Miami club or whatever, because clearly you're not completely motivated by the football issues. I mean, maybe that's a harsh thing to say, but that's kind of how I look at that. I always thought that Montreal was a long shot simply because he didn't strike me as a guy that at this point that was looking to do anything other than to go somewhere to cash a check and cash in. He did his sentimental, I'm going to play for the love of the game stuff by going back to Atleti. That was Torres's sort of aspect of that his career, and now he's done that even. So he's like, okay, well, what's the next chapter where I can cash out? And there's, we're looking at the Wayne Rooney rumors, which maybe we'll talk about in a minute. And it seems the same thing there, that there's this weird sort of evolution in MLS right now where you have these players that still think that way, and there are some MLS teams that are still willing to indulge that a little bit, but the league is moving past it. And I just don't think that, especially if I'm an Impact fan listening to this, and I know we have a lot of Impact fans who do listen to this, I'd just put it right out of your mind. If he's saying that stuff, forget about it. It's not worth your time.
Nope, I feel the same thing. And the Rooney rumor is now, maybe Wayne Rooney is going to DC United, Audi Field, new stadium, new superstar. Well, not new, like, in general, because he's past 30-something. But new in Washington, and maybe a name is what's needed to bring the crowds in the new stadium later this year. I'm wondering, it would make sense. Usually it's a tactic that we have seen across the league. You open your stadium, you get yourself a superstar, and you got yourself nice attendances for your first 3 games at the new stadium.
Yeah, well, look, this is absolutely a play for that. And Wayne Rooney, as much as we make fun of him, still is very much a globally recognized footballer that absolutely would move tickets and sell tickets. There would be a lot of United jerseys in the crowd, and I don't mean DC United when he played. That would be what would happen with Wayne. Maybe a few Everton jerseys, but they'd be old ones because not so much this year. This is the problem, though, too. If you're signing Wayne Rooney, look at his play in Everton this year, and he had a great start for them, but he's just not the player he was before. And you mentioned his age. He's not that old. He would, if he was in a little better shape, have a few years left. But that's just it with Wayne Rooney. He's not a player that strikes you as a guy that's going to be still scoring goals at 37, 38. And that's where you're at with Wayne Rooney. And I don't know. I think it's DC United would absolutely get some attention in its market right now if they were to sign him, but I don't know if this is a good move at all for a club that has really lost its way and is treading water until it gets into that new stadium. I guess they do have to make some kind of blast, but is this the way to do it?
That's what I'm wondering. And Wayne Rooney, you mentioned he's not that old. In mileage, he's old. He played for United, in 99, 2000 he started?
Yeah.
It was like early 2000. Even I think the clock hasn't struck midnight on 2000 yet. Been playing at this level for a long time. It's a car with a lot of mileage. And you go on a last trek across the country? You go on a last road trip with a car that's not necessarily under warranty anymore? That's a good question.
Well, yeah, almost 400 appearances for Manchester United. He signed there in 2004 after playing 67 times for Everton as a young player.
That's what I meant.
31 more.
Premier League been since the 2000 and 2004 since Man United.
Yeah, he's been made close to 500 appearances in the Premier League and had 120 caps for England on there, both youth and senior, and you have a lot of mileage. You come into 600 or so competitive games, and that's to completely ignore all of those barnstorming tours that United did all those years too. You probably added in their 50, 60 of those games and a lot of travel to the body as well on that. And this isn't a player that even at the peak of his powers was necessarily known for like his commitment to fitness. So yeah, this is a long shot here, but he would sell tickets, and that's, if you're DC United, you look at the weakness in the crowd, you look at your market. It is a market that has, a superstar in baseball. It has a superstar in hockey. The NFL team is the NFL team. They're going to sell regardless. DC United has kind of just been forgotten. They have a chance with this new stadium, and they must probably in their marketing department look and go, well, we need to have a name to attach to the new stadium, a face to put on it as well. And this does work on that level, but it's whether or not the soccer people are willing to play ball, and that would be my question. And I was, the report that Goff made yesterday was that he was in quote unquote serious negotiations, which means this is advanced. So I would hope that the soccer folks are involved at this point, saying, look, this is what we'd expect out of you. This is the role we'd expect you to play. This is, let's talk to a few people. Here are some players that you should speak to that can tell you what to expect and be honest with this, because that's just a conversation that needs to happen with these guys at this point in time in MLS, because they can't just come over and snap their fingers and be dominant. The level isn't as high as the Premier League. That's not what I'm saying here, but the commitment does need to be high. There's a train popping now if you hear some background noise, but it's yeah.
You're right, though. The level is not the same, but the commitment level, the effort level, the fitness level, the concentration level, those are all the same. The amount of exertion you will have during a game playing in 105 degrees Fahrenheit in Houston in about a month's time, guess what? It's a lot worse than what you're expected to. It's not that cool, and when you run, you're a bit more sweaty because it's really warm. And it's that type of commitment that we're talking about. And we hear just the Zlatan of this world already talking about how it's difficult, it's not easy. So, can only imagine a Wayne Rooney, which is not in shape like Zlatan was for his entire career, would react to after his first 90 minutes in Houston in July.
No, precisely. The heat, like MLS's weather, is something that I don't think a lot of people consider as being important when they're looking at and evaluating how players are going to advance. But you look at both sides of the weather. You have the MLS Cup final was played 2 years ago in like Arctic temperatures, basically, and then you also have sub-Saharan temperatures in the league. It is it's insane the variations and the travel and everything else. And that's why, if you're listening to this outside of North America and maybe are a little skeptical of some of the things we say when we're talking about what you need to look at for players that are successful, again, I want to stress that. We're not talking about the level being directly the same, but what we are talking about is there being differences in how you have to play over here that requires and put an emphasis on fitness and commitment and things like that some of these guys just simply don't have, despite, a great resume on the pitch. And Wayne Rooney, if you'd brought him over here at 27, yeah, he'd score 25, 30 goals in MLS. Absolutely. But now he'd score a few, probably, but I don't know if he'd have well, you'd hope. If he didn't, that'd be a true disaster. But then again, you look at Steven Gerrard, who did nothing over here.
He played here? Gerrard was at, L.A. Yeah, so, no. Maybe. We'll see what happens with Wayne Rooney, and especially if it is true, we'll see his commitment level as soon as he comes here. Because, well, reality comes knocking once you come to Major League Soccer. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, games of the midweek.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network. You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.
Patreon.com/Sports Podcasting Network is where you can support us financially and where you can take the pledge. $2 a month gives you access to the Two Solitudes Soccer podcast, which will have a very interesting interview and an interesting next couple of weeks for the Two Solitudes Soccer show. And we're back on Soccer Today with Duane Rollins and myself, Kevin Laramee. Tonight, Duane, 5 games on a Wednesday, almost a full slate. Starts at 7:30 tonight. Atlanta, Kansas City. Maybe, arguably, the two best teams in the league right now.
Well, I don't think it's arguably with Atlanta. They're in the best form in the league right now for sure. Kansas City certainly on great form, but you can argue in terms of the competition levels whether or not they're there. But this will be a great sort of indication of whether Kansas City, being at top of the West, being indisputably the best West team right now, is close, or how close they are to the top of the Eastern Conference. So a very interesting matchup there. Before we continue, Kevin, I find this interesting right now. I'm actually doing this podcast from a penalty box right now. I thought some people might find that amusing, and I just wanted to share that quickly. I am in a penalty box.
Duane's in the box. 2 minutes for over-talking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm looking at a hockey rink beside Monarch Park at any rate.
So tonight, that game, Atlanta Sporting Kansas City, will be very interesting. Atlanta 7-1-1 so far. So this game could have Supporter Shield's ramification. We're still early, but 3 points against a rival of the other conference is bonus in my mind. And Atlanta, with 3 points, would take an option, even though very early, would take at least the lead, continue to have the lead in the race for the Supporters Shield. 7:30, another game tonight, and this one is interesting to Montreal Impact fans because this is your next opponent on Saturday in Montreal. You're facing the Union. Tonight, the Union is playing Columbus in Columbus. The Union played last week, Friday, in Toronto, lost 3-0. We'll see what happens tonight. It's a 3-game road trip for the Union. And tonight they're playing against Columbus. It won't be easy. Columbus, after a hot start, has went back to reality a bit, came back down to earth. 4-3-3 the record so far for Columbus. And we do have the Union's record as well, 2-4-2. So this game, is Columbus going to be the hot team from the beginning of the season, or the team that we expected them to struggle with maybe off-pitch distractions?
They're playing the Union at home. It's guaranteed win night at the stadium. So yeah,
it's bobblehead night. It's a soccer ball in the net type of night.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean we're a bit flippant there, but the Union 3 games in a row on the road. This is going to be a tough week for them. As Jonathan said on the show yesterday, they need to find some points in this, but it's hard to see how. They really just they're bad at the top and the back, right? They're okay in the midfield a little bit, but they really don't produce much offense, and they are just horrific defensively. And if you run at them, and if you look at what Toronto did last fight, and obviously Toronto has some high-end offensive talent players, but they were running. They were just attacking them with the dribble, and that was causing all sorts of panic at the back. They could see that the Union were fouling early. They were just out of sorts the entire time, and that's really what you need to do to knock this team down. Quickly, Kevin, we got a notification that Josie Altidor's injury yesterday as well. He's at 4 to 6 weeks. Had surgery on his ankle yesterday as well. So there's a little TFC news for you as well.
So
before we continue,
that's the cost of the Champions League. The Champions League costs you 6 weeks of Josie. That's the cost of playing with an injury, postponing the recovery time to make it to the final. And since the last kick of the ball there, we kind of figured he was going to be out for a while. If you go back to the show after the final of the CONCACAF Champions League, it's exactly what we said. We were surprised by Vasquez coming right away back, but we expected Jose to be out for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I said that a couple times during the run that I expected to be out. It's about 6 weeks, and when it comes to all total, he's going to be out for 8 when it's all said and done, which, that's the cost of the Champions League, as you say. I do believe that Toronto's biggest need in the summer window is to sign another forward that they can use as sort of because they don't really have that in between unless they think Jordan Hamilton's ready to step up into the role. But enough of we can talk about TFC next.
I'm going there. Exactly. So is he ready to step up in the role? Will he start tonight against Seattle at home? This is a rematch, literally, but at least with warmer weather, of the last 2 MLS Cups. So 2016-2017 MLS Cup was Toronto versus Seattle, and tonight it is the same. But tonight, both teams are limping into this challenge. Not in a final setting, not in a great moment setting. Both are bottom dwellers right now in their respective conferences. Toronto FC with a record of 2 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw this year so far in league competition. Yeah. Seattle Sounders FC, 1 win, 4 losses, and 2 draws in league competition as well. Toronto at home. Is Jordan Hamilton going to start? And is he the heir apparent to the injured Josie Altidore?
Well, heir apparent's a strong way to put it. No, first off,
interim,
much warmer
interim
tonight.
Then. Interim apparent. Interim hair.
Yeah, precisely. It's you talk about the book being bottom dwellers, and that is literally true. TFC is second last in the conference. Seattle is last in the conference, but one of those 2 teams looks more likely to stay down there, and it is not the team that is on the road tonight.
It is the team that's on the road tonight. It's Seattle that looks terrible.
Well, yes, precisely, yeah. I think that, I was on the Vocal Minority this weekend. We talked about this as well. Well, we see a bit of a rotation this week because of the basically 3 games in 8 days that they're playing, and this will finally end the stretch of them playing like a lot of games with short rests. They actually have another short week after this one, after Saturday, but they go on a Friday after that. So it has been a tough stretch. I do think you'll see a rotation, not quite like you saw, the Houston or the Colorado game during the CCL run, but I do think you'll see Jordan Hamilton get a run out. He does trust him. I think you'll see Jay Chapman get a run out too, but what you won't see is them doing a full rotation at the back. I mean, first off, they don't really have the bodies to do that, although they did say that Hagelin and Mavinga are close to being back into the run. I suspect that you might see Hagelin playing in the game that I'm about to watch in 40 minutes or so before he gets a run out to the top team again. They need to. I mean, they have depth, and they have proven that. They don't quite have 3-tier depth, as we saw in the CCL run, but they do have 2-tier depth. And I would think that you'll get a bit of a rotation. And that goal that Hamilton scored at the end of the game, the assist that he had at the end of the game last week, and the reaction they had on the bench, and Danny's reaction to that suggested to me that this is a guy that they are beginning to feel is ready to take that next step in his career and in his importance to TFC. So it is maybe the story to watch this week with the 2 games with the short week, the double week again.
Yeah. And as well, 8:30 tonight, those 3 games we mentioned all happening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, either TSN for the Toronto games or FS1 and your local broadcaster for those MLS games in local markets. Chicago Fire versus the Montreal Impact, 8:30 p.m. at Toyota Park on TVS Sport and ESPN Plus. By the way, ESPN Plus, Wayne, I know this is not soccer related, but it's media related, so it's interesting to our listeners. And if you have MLS Plus, MLS Live, in the States, it means you have ESPN Plus. It means this affects you. This morning, UFC signed a contract with ESPN Plus to have a multi-year deal. So we'll see how this helps the platform ESPN Plus and how this helps MLS Live on ESPN Plus with more big properties on this streaming application. So that's interesting. But Chicago, Montreal tonight, TVA Sport, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Yeah, it's an interesting matchup. Chicago, we'll see, 2-4-2, the record so far this year. Montreal 3-6-0. So it is a battle of rivals that will be battling each other. I know I said battle 3 times in a row. We're battling each other for a playoff spot. So it does have playoff implication down the road. Montreal coming off of 4 straight losses, then a nice win against New England on Saturday. Can they pull 2 wins in a row after 4 straight losses? We'll see. And Montreal, we'll see if there's a bit of rotation as well. I wouldn't be surprised, Wayne, if we see Ken Krolicki back tonight for a full 90.
Yeah. And you mentioned, it seems early to be talking about 6-point games, but I don't think it is. I think that when you're looking at the battle for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kind of in the East, that it's going to be that tight all year, so that, points in your pocket or points on the board or points in your pocket, right? As we say many times on this, and they're not worth any less now than they are at the end of the year. So an absolute vital game, I would say, for both of these teams, and one that it's very hard to handicap because I've seen Jekyll and Hyde out of both Montreal and Chicago this year, and I kind of lean more towards Montreal as a better prospect long-term based on what I'm seeing, but, not just because Chicago might get moved to another location. It's going to be an interesting one there for sure.
And the last game tonight, the West Third Conference game, late game, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 Pacific, at the Bank of California Stadium. Can Minnesota United give LAFC their first loss in their new home? We'll see. Both teams, train coming right next to mine. Both teams are coming to this game kind of hot. LA, 3 wins and a draw in their last 4 games. Minnesota, 3 losses, then 2 wins. A bit of a streaky team. 2 wins in a row for Minnesota. Can they travel to LA and get a result, or will LAFC continue their surprising run in the Western Conference? They're second right now in the Western Conference, and I'm surprised by the fact that it's staying afloat in LA. Despite the lack of depth, they don't even have 23 players on their roster. Still, performing well. A record of 5-2-1 this season so far. Second best teams in the West right now. But will it hold against Minnesota? And wouldn't be surprised. It's LA. A lot of Mexican fans will come to this game because of Minnesota United Darwin Quintero. Could that play a hand in it? Can we see Quintero want to give a show to his Mexican fan in LA? That's going to be something to watch.
It'll be interesting to watch the crowd because of the disappointing attendance from the second home game there at the Bank of California Stadium. LAFC, I've pretty much watched all their games this year, and you mentioned that they are maintaining their points. For sure they are. I have noticed a drop in quality. I do think that has to do with fatigue and the fact that, the adrenaline of the start of the season is beginning to wear off. They do need to supplement that roster for sure in the transfer window, and they do have more players coming in their fairness. So this is, an opportunity for them to prove us otherwise. Wes was ready to punt this game on Monday when we talked to him, and we'll see whether that will hold true. I would still, if I'm gambling on this, I'm still going to give LAFC the favorite role, but Minnesota's been tricky this year, and credit to them for that.
Yeah, and you never know what can happen. Usually, if you take Hakam's razor and you think, what's the most likely scenario to happen, you flip it over, and that's what happens in Major League Soccer. So, Chicago's winning tonight, Minnesota's winning tonight, and other stuff like this is probably going to happen tonight. One thing that's for sure happening tonight is you can follow us on social media, and you can follow our conversation during the Toronto game for Duane, during the Montreal game for myself, Duane at 24th minute, myself at Kev Laramee. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. to talk about tonight's games, to review a bit, some more news in the world of soccer, the world of football with the soccer perspective. I got it. That's it. And as always, youtube.com/sports podcasting network to make sure you never miss a live show. Click on the notification bell and make sure you're notified and you're aware of when our sexy voices goes live. And as always, until tomorrow, have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.